Thank you. Thank you.
Iya, kan ada ambassador.
Excellencies, ministers, head of delegation, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. To start the closing plenary session, we would like to invite Pak Wimar Witular up to the stage to start the closing plenary. We also would like to invite the 6 speakers, Ms. Karina Medua Guce from the Executive Director of Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines. Also, we would like to invite Ms. Mariati Abdullah, OGP Steering Committee Member, Publish What You Pay, Indonesia. We would like to also invite Dr. Michael James Macaulay, Deputy Director of the Institute of Governance and Policy Studies, New Zealand. We would like to also invite Mr. Ahmad Yuniarto, CEO of Schlumberger, Indonesia. Mr. Phil Matseza, Practice Leader, Democratic Government's Asia Pacific Regional Center from UNDP. Last but not least, Mr. Joel Mark Paredo from ASEAN Youth Movement.
Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, heads of delegation, friends all, members of the OGP Forum, it's my pleasure to escort you to the end of a very fruitful 2 days. And just to remind us where we are, this is the OGP Asia Pacific Regional Conference. The theme of the event is Unlocking Innovative Openness, Impetus for Greater Citizen Engagement. And this session has the theme of Take Action, Innovative Openness in Asia Pacific. Yes, it's been an eventful 2 days. It's been a hard day's night, but it has also been a lot of fun and inspiring. I must speak for me personally that I think it's quite rare that I have been this excited about a forum. Just now I was talking with Pa Kuntoro that this reinforces our belief that there are many good people in the world, specifically in the Asia-Pacific region, more specifically in Indonesia. And they are represented here in this closing session. We have heard many things in the 2 days, in the breakout sessions, in the plenary sessions. We have been sharing ideas. We have been questioning a lot of concepts, and we have supplied answers. And now in this last session, I'm inviting our speakers here to share with us just what they have learned. And what have you learned from these 2 days, and what have you shared to share with you all. So without further ado, let me introduce the speakers. The speakers will start on my left, and they each represent the various sectors involved here. The government represent government, the CSOs, the academics, the private sector, multilateral partners, and youth representatives. So we have, for the government sector, the representative is Ms. Karina Medua Guce, Executive Director of the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines. The CSO representative is Ms. Mariati Abdullah, OGP Steering Committee Member, Publish What You Pay, Indonesia. As the academic representative, we have Dr. Michael James Macaulay, Deputy Director of the Institute of Governance and Policy Studies from Victoria University in Auckland, New Zealand. In the private sector, we are represented here by Pa Ahmad Yuniarto, CEO of Schlumberger International. And for multilateral partners, we have Mr. Phil Macheza, Practice Leader, Democratic Governance, Asia Pacific Regional Center, UNDP. Our youth representative is Mr. Joel Mark Barredo, ASEAN Youth Movement. It will be an exciting 1 hour, and we invite the first speaker, Ms. Charina Mediaguche, please.
Hi, hello. Good afternoon. Magandang hapon po. So, I am from the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines. That's the umbrella organization of all leagues of locally elected government officials in the Philippines. We represent the local governments in the steering committee of the Philippine OGP, and we provide support for advocating for OGP projects to the local governments. I have 3 main points for us this afternoon. First, that OGP must be owned by local governments for OGP to be effective. 2, that local governments must strategize for innovative implementation of OGP in subnational levels. And then 3, moving forward, what may be the focus of our work in local governments. So let's start. First, based on the 2 conference, it was really clear to me that OGP must be owned by the local governments. President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono said yesterday, OGP is not enough if it is not owned by its citizens. So how do we change public paradigms? How do we bring OGP to the consciousness of housewives listening to the news while doing their chores? How do we bring OGP to the out-of-school youth desperately trying to find a way to make a living? How do we bring OGP to Filipino migrants abroad and their families left behind? How do we bring open governments to people living in disaster-prone areas? To the fishermen, farmers, senior citizens, persons with disabilities, and other vulnerable sectors? The answer is taking OGP to the front lines. And front lines are the domain of the local governments. This is something that was echoed by Dr. Kemal Siregar of the National AIDS Commission of Indonesia in a forum earlier. Now, the point is that OGP programs must go beyond simple local government compliance to national government guidelines. Local governments and local leaders must understand and put their own stake in local planning and implementation of OGP. Which brings me to my second point, that local governments must strategize carefully for the innovative implementation of OGP in the subnational level. Last night, the Philippine contingent of CSOs, business sector, and us in ULAP agreed that the next country action plan of the Philippines will be co-developed and co-created with the national government, which means there will be strategies, programs, and targets that will be driven by the CSOs, business, and local governments themselves. But we have to be realistic about this because we currently do not have the capacity to invest on massive infrastructure like what Mayor Ridwan Camille of Bandung has done. He invested on 5,000 internet hotspots all over the cities. He has Twitter accounts for all his offices. And the war room for OGP that they're building is literally an image out of Star Trek's Enterprise. It was wonderful. But we'd like to learn about what Bandung does later on if we have the chance. But in the Philippines, our challenge is more of what India faces, as shared by Aparna Das yesterday. She said that only 11% of India is internet connected, and they have deliberately decided that not all data will be open on certain fora. In the Philippines, based on 2013 data, around 3 or 4 out of every Filipinos have regular internet access. Hence, internet may not necessarily be the public domain. The implication of which for local governments is that we have to redefine the modalities of the public space. Match what OGP interventions will apply to contextual contingencies and needs of various sectors in society. Which means there are things that have to happen online, on online platforms for the scale of reach. And there are things that must happen in the offline face-to-face interactions, so for depth, and so we can leverage on the local government's personal relationship to their constituents. And we have in the local governments to innovate on this, again, very strategically. Now, on to my third point, moving forward, what may we focus on? Most urgently, we need to work on local capacity development for OGPs in the local level. Because really, we're looking at 3 dimensions of OGP. First, we need responsive systems and structures. 2, efficient and effective processes. And 3, trust-based, productive, multi-stakeholder relationships. So you have structures, processes, and relationships. Now, the guidelines for these dimensions in the Philippines for the local level are already in place. Of course, we have the landmark legislation of the 1991 Local Government Code. We currently have the Department of Interior and Local Government Programs, particularly the Seal of Good Housekeeping, which is our Financial Transparency Award for local governments, of which 88% of local governments have already passed as of last year. And 2, the recently launched Seal for Good Local Governance, which awards specific effective governance and service delivery outcomes. And also we have the Department of Budget and Management's participatory planning process, which is being implemented in the Philippines now. But when you look at all those dimensions and put in the Philippine context, there's much space for improvement in all parts, particularly 2. And this may be the areas that we could focus on. 1, we'd like to look at capacity development of local governments to be inclusive, be ready to respond to the high demand that an open government entails, and be accountable in the process. Because as Ms. Malu Mangahas of the PCIJ yesterday said, transparency and accountability are 2 very different things. There are local governments in the Philippines that have initial successes and really show promise. I can cite Bohol, Tarlac, Oriental Mindoro, and many more that would take up around 10 more minutes. Let's go there. So we can use those examples for replication and moving forward. We can, of course, also learn and innovate on the experiences of other local governments in OGP countries if we have the chance. Now, B, we also like to look at the capacity development of the civil society groups that should be present and or accessible to local governments on the ground. Because there are civil society groups that work on the national level and there are civil society groups that are in the local levels. The CSOs must also be prepared to be open and willing to partner with their local governments. And you can just imagine the demand that open government creates in terms of the relationship of local governments and the CSOs. Because we have 80 provinces, 144 cities, and 1,494 municipalities in the Philippines. The demand for collaborative work will be very high. So I learned yesterday that from Executive Director Sadia Nutomo of Patiro that there's been some work in Indonesia on this, on engaging CSOs and the citizens to do this with their governments. And we hope to make it happen in the Philippines as well. Now, because when we address the capacities of the local governments and the capacities of the local CSOs to work together for OGP, we can have transparent, collaborative, and more importantly, evidence-informed policymaking and program implementation in the subnational level. So at this point, moving forward, we want to focus on the bottom line. As the mayor of Bandung said yesterday, it's political will. When you look at governments, we have to address the political will of governments and invite them in so they can own OGP and make it happen in the subnational levels. So moving forward, we will return home with a vision of local, innovative openness at hand. Thank you very much.
Very progressive and powerful perspectives from the representative of the local authorities of the Philippines. Thank you, Sharina. And now from my own great nation of Indonesia. Well, don't laugh. It is a great nation because of people like Ms. Mariati. Please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellency, all of the OGP delegates here, civil society and governments, and also Excellency for all of the people who fight for right to freedom of information, freedom of associations, and also fighting for a better life. This afternoon, in these 2 days OGP conference, we see that there are many initiatives. There are many promoting of initiative, and we connect each other, we interact each other, But I wanted to send that, do we understand what is the meaningful of OGP? What is the meaningful of openness in here? So I wanted to remind me and all of you, the heart of openness is the consciousness. The consciousness, why the consciousness? Because without consciousness, we can understand each other. Because without consciousness, we just seeing the OGP as the forum for festivalizations, for promoting, or also just for discussing each other. But with consciousness, it can driving our responsibility of citizens, responsibility of governments to making greater impacts of openness to the citizens, to the development, to the sustainability, and to the right of information and also right of environment, budget, and etc. In this moment also, I wanted to remind us as civil society side, we have to honesty to work with others, to work with the governments, to work with the community, to work with other civil society on collaboration watch. And also, this is very important that we can, if we can making a meaningful impact of open government partnership, it means that we have to fulfill the right of citizens to get the information, to decrease the asymmetric information, and also to decrease the poverty, to decrease the corruptions, and also to make sure the sustainability of development itself. In practically thing that I wanted to say that the main agenda for civil society that we have been discussed in the Civil Society Day 2 days ago, and also I wanted to propose some of agenda that civil society agreed and or should take action to the greater openness are, first one, we continuing working on engagement process with the governments to improve more meaningful impact with the main principle on open mind, honesty, trust building, inclusive and equal policy making process. This is not easy, but it's possible to achieve because in some many OGP countries, we improve the relationship between governments and civil society. We building the trust each others, and also we create the institutionalization of OGP implementations. We're using IRM reports. We also making an independent reporting mechanism, independent report of civil society. But we can communicating each others, and we can give input and correction each other. The second thing that we have to, in continuing the empower citizen on demanding openness and fighting for the right to information, associations, making a good basic services and also right to environment. This is very important basic enabling environment for openness and for OGP initiative itself. So we have to make sure in each country, in many Asia-Pacific countries, for example, that they didn't still have a freedom of information law yet. It's very important also to protect the civic space in here. The third one that we have to elaborating more ideas and innovative action for emerging the impact to the citizens to reduce the poverty, to making a program and also actions to reduce the corruption itself. Because many Asia-Pacific countries, we still fighting for the poorness and also fighting for the corruption and also fighting for the civic space. The three of these, this is the main problem in this region of Asia-Pacific country. So we have to fight for that. And the fourth one, we have to, in ourselves, to improve our capacity, to fill the gap between us with the capacity of openness itself, and also to fill the gap between us with the citizen in the community as well, And maybe we have to also fill the gap between us with the government to be honestly that into some extent, there are many fill the gap that I hear from these 2 days conference. So we have to elaborate our capacity, and we have to elaborate the opportunity to work and also to fill the gap in this context. And I think that we need to we need to have a commitment for sharing, learning each others, and also we have to build a good and strong governance of civil society itself. Civil society not just need the transparent for themselves itself, but also we need to more accountable to our beneficiaries and also to our constituency. Civil society organization is not stand-alone organization without beneficiaries and without citizens constituency, but we have to accountable to many stakeholders and our citizens. And the last one that we need to continuing the strong advocacy for the regional level in Asia Pacific to push more strong openness and transparency and public participations in many multilateral initiatives. We know that some of us is commitment with the EATI, we also member of UN, so we have to push the transparency, accountability, and public participation on post-2015 agenda to be a standalone of governance framework, and also there are many initiatives, international initiative, and in OGP itself, we have to make sure the internal mechanism of OGP to protect civic space and providing internal mechanism to making a response in terms of the violation of OGP value itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As many of you know, we have a thriving civil society, CSOs, in Indonesia in the last 13 years, but it is preceded actually with a gradual strengthening of the civil society, even during the most repressive years of past governments. And now the point I want to make is that whatever happens in the future with our elections, with the elections in other countries, when our civil society is strong and when they have succeeded in building a partnership, a bridge of common innovativeness with the government, then no political elections can change the fabric of society. Thank you. What? No applause? Not for me, but for the concept which was actually reminded to me by Pak Kuntoro. He said, don't worry about anything. We will stand firm with the international support of the OGP community, with our strength, and I found that very inspirational. So we don't worry. Okay, now we have an academic representative, which sent chills up my spine because I was very poor academically, and I would like to hear from you whether your views coincide with mine. And this is Dr. Michael James Macaulay from the gentle and beautiful country of New Zealand.
Thank you. Salam saya. Good afternoon. And as we say in New Zealand, kia ora. Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for inviting me for this huge honor of allowing me to speak to you this afternoon and to share the stage with these wonderful people. I'd like to thank our host, the Indonesian government. I'd like to thank the conference organizers. And I'd like to say a special thank you to Karina, who's at the back there. Give us a wave, Karina. Everyone give Karina a round of applause. She's done a wonderful job in keeping us all together. This is my first trip to Bali, to the land of the gods. I'm having a magnificent time. I'm already excited about coming back. And I promise that I will buy souvenirs. I will shop in Bali. I promise. Now, I have been asked to reflect on what academics can do with the Open Government Partnership. And my first reflection is simply this. We can learn. Most people think of academics as teachers or as writers, but the vast majority of our time and the most important and interesting part of our job is the learning. And I have learned so much today on this one single day that I've had to actually abandon my speech that I wrote last night. The lightning talks this morning were absolutely phenomenally good. They were brilliant, yes. The breakout sessions were fascinating, full of real, genuine, real-life stories, genuine people making genuine changes, making this world a genuinely better place. I can't think of anything better than that, and I've learned a huge amount for that. I honestly say thank you to everyone that I've heard speak in the last 2 days. So my next reflection is simply how privileged I am. How privileged I am to be an academic and to be involved in the Open Government Partnership. I'm very lucky in New Zealand. I'm very lucky. I have wonderful access to government. I have wonderful access to civil society organisations, to NGOs. I'm really proud today that a couple of hours ago I co-presented a presentation with Gordon Davis from the State Services Commission while I was representing the wonderful Transparency International New Zealand. And my opportunity to move between these different organisations and to have dialogue with them all is something to which I'm extremely grateful. And that made me think about what it is that academia can possibly do for the Open Government Partnership. And I've thought of 4 things. There may be more, but I've thought of 4. First, academia can provide a space. We've heard a lot, I've heard a lot, in the last 2 days about spaces for participation. And we can provide 3 kinds of space. 1, we can provide a physical space, a location, rooms, lecture theatres, places to visit, places to congregate. 2, we can provide virtual spaces, abilities to access networks that some people may not be aware of, abilities to manage those networks electronically, on the web, so on and so forth. And 3, I think academia has a potential to offer intellectual space. The place where ideas can be shared. The place where dreams can be had, criticism can be made frankly and freely, with honesty, but with respect. And the intellectual space where we can all come together and try and move forward with this wonderful, wonderful initiative. Now, the other thing I think we can do as academia is obviously moving from that, sharing ideas. We know quite a lot about bits and bobs in the world of academia, and we love to share, we love to talk. We love to do things like we're doing now, like I'm doing now. Please invite us in. Please invite your university colleagues, your higher education colleagues, all your education colleagues, your students especially. Invite them in, share their ideas, give them your ideas. The third thing I think we can do is to try and codify the knowledge that we have. We've heard a lot of really brilliant things, really brilliant things. But one thing we know for certain is that one example in one country or in one community or in one region might not work in another. So we need to work out what will work, under what circumstances, and what could be learned and what could be taken to other places and to other regions. And I think academics and academia has a role to play in that. And finally, we can help, I hope, in disseminating information. I'm the editor of an international journal. I would welcome the opportunity to have a special issue on open government partnership matters. I don't know any editor who wouldn't welcome the same thing. I would welcome the opportunity to write books about these fantastic endeavours, about these wonderful examples that we've had. We can disseminate information. Now, one more personal reflection. Not necessarily connected to academia, but a friend of mine in the audience, I'm not sure where she is, Keitha Booth, who did a wonderful presentation yesterday, was talking about New Zealand and accountability and transparency. And she made a really interesting point, that the countries that sit on top of Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index, New Zealand, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, etc., all have really small populations, give or take about 4 or 5 million. And she made the point, and I kind of had thought of it before, but not quite as clearly as she put it, that with such small populations, it's a lot easier to know each other. And I think that is a crucial, possibly the most important thing that I've taken away from this conference. That the Open Government Partnership is all about getting to know each other. Because who do we trust? Who do we trust? We trust our friends, we trust our families, we trust some colleagues. Why? Because we know them. Simple. How do we know our governments? How do we know our politicians? Well, we get to know them through transparency, through accountability, through integrity, and through all the wonderful things that we're trying to promote through the OGP. But the crucial difference is that never ends. Politicians rise and fall, governments come and go, citizens are born, they age, they die. It's a constant journey. And that's what made me think more than anything about the OGP. Not only is trust about getting to know people, and we had a wonderful speaker, Anuri, yesterday who made the same point, much better than I have just done. But this is a journey. It's not a destination. And we need to be there, working together. Academics need to be fellow travellers with you. Civil society organisations need to be fellow travellers. Governments need to be fellow travellers, because together, as I'm sure we all think after today, after the last 2 brilliant days, that is how we can continue to make our difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Macaulay. Yes, the presence of the internet is all pervasive. I have counted 79% of the people here are on their mobile devices, including the lady next to me. And I'm sure what they are doing is spreading the message around the world. And in fact, Michael and I had a discussion last night, and I said, are there many academics here? As far as he knows, just 3 or 4. But all of us have been academic in one form or another at some point in their life, even a failed academic like me. So the way to get the message across is through the internet. Which brings me to a very severe apology I have to make to Ms. Karina Kusumawardani, because I neglected to carry out her instruction to encourage people to tweet using the hashtag OGP Bali. So if you haven't done so, please, it's never too late. You might mention my handle is @Wimar. Okay. So we are now welcoming from Schlumberger, which is the premier engineering firm in the world. I was an engineer. I never could make it even to your front door. So please, give us your address. Mr. Ahmad Juniarto.
Thank you, Pak Wimar, for very generous introductions. I don't have to introduce my company. But in the spirit of openness, I will admit as well, Pak Wimar, that we do not have CEO in Indonesia. Oh. So my job is not a CEO. I am the chairman for our group here. But anyway, that's a minor detail. I would like to share you the aha moment that the private sector has when we congregate together. Apparently there is this initiative called OGP. So many of us did not have a prior knowledge about such a beautiful and a good initiative. And that's very telling. And reflectively, you know, we take a lot from that, because once knowing what is OGP is all about, a lot of us has come with many, many examples of real application that can just slot in into the very spirit of the initiative. So when we look into it, OGP, or Open Government Partnerships, that promotes transparency and openness, is it about technology? Is it about using internet on a day-to-day governance process? No, it is not. Those are tools. Those are gadgets. Those are enablers. And the real crux of it is building the trust and closing the gap, not only between the government and its constituent, but also within or amongst members of the society. That's it's all about. It is an exercise of building the trust. And when we want to build the trust, then tools come second. The most important one is a change of mindset, translated into the right behaviors. So not only we have to focus on the tools, let's focus as well on the intangible part of it, which is working with people, because the sustainability of this very good program and initiative is not on the technology. It rests on the people itself and how we all can inbuild the openness, the transparencies, and the accountability into the mindsets that we have in every single thing that we do, and translate that into the habit through the behavior that we do on every single thing in everyday life. So, learning from what each of us, perhaps within our own corporations, practices that can slot in, learning from the team of OKP 4, thank you very much Pak Kuntoro for putting us together. Kudos to Pak Kuntoro and OKP 4, please round of applause for the wonderful team here. That we have the opportunity to learn as well that even in Indonesia, at the level of regency, kota maja, or a city municipality, there are many, many beautiful examples of innovation or simple changes introduced by the local government, but not many people has the knowledge of it. So doing well is one thing, but telling well is completely different things. So first of all, in here, that we would like to approach the open government partnership is through the spirit of it. Take the spirit of it and expand it. That what we would like altogether promote is the spirit and the principle of good citizenship. That whoever you are within a community, not only you have the right that comes with you, with that right comes a certain responsibility and accountability. And the whole process of this building trust through collaborations, through dialogues, and what have you, is together as the citizens of that particular community, you have responsibility and accountability to play the role, to chip in, not only complaining, but to chip in and be part of the process of change. And that is the very act of being a responsible and a good citizen. And that is the basis principle of us from private sectors would like to promote in our contribution and participations to OGP, and perhaps in Indonesia is OGI initiative. So Pak Kuntoro, we are ready. Please take us as part of the steering committee of the OGP or OGI in Indonesia. Inshallah, we will support this very, very good initiative. Second, again, we look into the spirit of it, of building trust. So part of building trust is breaking down barriers, removing barriers, and removing the silos. So one way to take it forward is let's face the music and dance. What does it mean? Let's move from individual sector dialogue. Let's organize the dialogue based on issues or concerns that we have and approach it multi-sectors. Yeah, there might be fights, there might be distrust at the beginning, but hey, that's the only way to start building the trust is by working together. And that is the point that we would like to promote to every one of us. Now, let's stop organizing dialogues individually within sectors. Let's do it multi-sectors, and I think we will be able to advance the case faster, and we will be able to build the trust better and faster also. The third point, from private sectors, we are accustomed to being practical and pragmatic. So what we could bring is an operational competency and experiences in executing programs. And I think that's the one that could be embedded. We have technologies that we have used that can be, practically adapted to what is needed in every single communities or society that we have. But we also have processes. We also have people's expertise that could bring into it. So through these three lenses, people, process, and technologies, I think private sectors could contribute a lot in advancing the case. And last but not least, I have touched a little bit on the sustainability of this program. Let's not forget our children, because the future is theirs, not us. And the future of this program, the sustainability of the very principle of transparency, accountability, and openness and participative way of governance lies on them. So let's work together so that our children nurtured, educated in an open, caring, and trusting environment. Let's do it.
Thank you, Ahmad Yuniarto. Technology is not the point, he said. Trust is the point, building trust. And we are building trust in a huge way in these 2 days. Thank you all. Now we move on to the representative from youth, of which I was once a part. Okay, Mr. Joel Mark Baredo from the ASEAN Youth Movement. I take it you're from the Philippines? Ah, yes, that's my favorite country when I was young. Please, still.
Hello? Okay. Okay. I'll start with this. Om Swastiastu. Om. Salamat sore. Magandang hapon. Swasaday. Sawadee kap. Sabaydi. Xin chao. Good evening, my friends. So it's been a pleasure to be in the presence of like-minded and equally fabulous personalities during these 2 days. And I am honored to be speaking on behalf of the 71 young leaders, young people in this conference. Can you please stand up and be acknowledged, the young people here? It is the first time that there's a huge delegation of young people. They have to be acknowledged. Thank you so much. And of course, I speak on behalf of those who are young at heart, which I think is everyone here. Thousands of my friends and I have been tirelessly working for a youth-driven, people-centered, rights-based, and sexuality-embracing ASEAN community, and have been committing our time, have been exhausting our energies to make sure that young people from all walks of life are able to enjoy their lives to the fullest. And just in case you'll forget everything that I'll be saying, please remember this one thing. I believe that it is inaccurate to say that young people are the new agents of change. We have to all acknowledge that the immense work of young people from past and present generations in reinstating democracy and shaping effective mechanisms for governance have already been made, and we all have to acknowledge this. We are all tired of being called the leaders of tomorrow because whether you like it or not, we are the leaders of today. Many of us are breadwinners of our families. Some of us have been elected to local government positions, and many have gone to the streets to fight for truth and for the full promotion of human rights and freedoms. The OPG itself is young and rather an ambitious mechanism. All the more that it has to be open to creative, progressive, and potentially powerful ideas and inputs. And to genuinely achieve these goals of the open government partnership, it is crucial to be mindful of the following. And I can sum this up to what I call Gen OGP. GENOGP. G is to guarantee meaningful spaces for engagement of young people in all processes and in all levels of governance. Youth efforts have to be acknowledged and supported both politically and financially. E is to embrace and accept and not just tolerate our diverse identities. We come in different shapes, sizes, political beliefs, genders, sexual identities, and what have you. N is never take us for granted. Almost 40% of the world's population is comprised of young people. Definitely, policies and laws that are implemented directly affect our lives. I hope and strongly believe that the participation of young people in this OGP process is not a tokenistic gesture. For many years, we have been asked by governments and intergovernmental bodies to speak out as loud as we can. But at this point, for most of us, we are already tired of amplifying our voices. It is about time to meaningfully engage us in all these processes. Meaningfully entails young people in the planning room to the construction site. We have to be visible. We have to employ the language of young people in policies. And our work has to be needs-based and evidence-based. Of course, in these conferences, we are tired of dancing and wearing costumes. And you know what I mean. I fervently hope that in the next OGP summit, I could see and interact with more young summit leaders, young leaders in CSOs, and young government officials talking about their challenges and achievements to a wider audience. Although an OGP Youth Summit is good, but an OGP forum that has young people on the driver's seat and their issues mainstream in its agenda is all the more fabulous. At the end of the day, the open government agenda is all about how accountability, participation, and transparency impact the lives of young people. We must be all aware of the reality and be more sensitive to the needs and wants of youth. To make it easier, I'd like to raise some questions related to young people like me. Number one, how can a young transgender man enjoy his right to public health services without being rejected based on his gender and sexual identity? How can a young pregnant girl access information about her well-being without being worried about social repercussions? How can a young entrepreneur register his or her business without going through the hassles of unnecessary bureaucracy and red tape? How can an aspiring young politician push for his agenda without being discriminated and without dealing with hierarchies? How can a young activist promote his or her advocacies in a country with limited space for freedom of expression? How can a young person from a rural area access information about opportunities for education and livelihood in other parts of his or her country? And last, how can a young person who went through a natural disaster find ways to access humanitarian aid? At this point, in many countries, it is still impossible to address these questions. Certainly, there's still so much to be done. As I speak right now, millions of young people are still dreaming of a better life and are trying their very best to do all possible and impossible measures to achieve their goals. This is despite of political barriers, financial difficulties, and social restrictions. Right now, at the local levels, young leaders will continue to enhance the capacity of their friends to monitor projects and programs. At the national level, we will continue to mobilize young people in ways to fight corruption, promote open governance, and enrich our knowledge on our human rights and fundamental freedoms. At the regional and international levels, we will continue to share and raise our concerns, challenges, and best practices to be able to come up with more efficient ways to contribute to good governance. So let's start working together. And then once we have successfully reached our targets, then we can all party hard. And that's the best time you can see us groove and dance without fear and worries. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much. Youth are always our hope, and eventually they will become government people, will become CSO people, they will become academicians, they will become all the categories which we have discussed. But now you are the masters of the universe. Okay. I'm sorry. Nothing wrong with the committee, but an oversight on my part. We missed a very important speaker, whom I met last night. I'm so sorry. Phil Machiza from the UNDP, Asia Pacific.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure for me to be part of this very interesting interactive conference. It's actually my first participation at an OGP meeting. Don't worry really about forgetting me. I come from Zimbabwe, so it's Z is the last on the alphabet, and that's my default position.
I don't forget.
I have been given two very simple tasks. One is to reflect on what has gone on for 2 days from a multilateral partner point of view. And the second one is, well, for us as multilateral partners, to give some initial thoughts of how we could support this process forward. This wasn't an innocent way. It was quite a way of making us commit quite early. So thank you. When I reflect all the rich discussions that went on since yesterday, what struck me was the unanimity, the consensus around the subjects. The issues of building trust, which my colleague has already mentioned, came up so often, and the need for information flow, so that at least the citizenry can know what the government is doing. What was very interesting was that the government representative, including the minister and the president as well yesterday, the governments went on the defensive. They were actually in the forefront of saying, indeed, this is how we are opening up. And I thought that was a very, very encouraging way of having the discourse. There were issues of participation involving the citizenry, not just giving them a token or presence. There was one particular topic that touched my heart. It was governance matters. Governance. And that poverty was a result of the poverty of governance. Many countries are not poor out of lack of resources. It's the organizations on the exploitation and distribution of the resources that we do have. As the discussion was going on, it looked as though we were reaffirming the discussions that went on in New York during the midterm review of the MDGs in September 2010, where governance was emphasized as a contributory factor to some poor performance and lack of achievements of MDGs in some cases. We had the Rio plus 20 discussions. Again, everybody was saying we made mistakes before. We excluded governance. We aren't going to make the same mistake in future. Then we had the post-2015 discussions. Again, it was governance should be there. It was participation. It was the citizenry. It was justice, human rights. So I felt that this conference was abreast with all the international discourses that are going on. Well, should it be surprising? The principles of open governance, government partnership are principles of transparency, voice, and accountability. Now, coming to UNDP, we are not just one of the 4 multilateral partners, but we are also a major player when it comes to provision of technical assistance in the whole world. For instance, in 2012, we supported governments and civil society to the tune of $1.1 billion in the area of governance alone. Please don't have ideas. We also have supported OGP commitments in some countries, including Ukraine, Montenegro, and El Salvador. And it is our intention to continue supporting those processes in this region as well. But besides providing technical assistance and provision of advisory and programming support to countries and civil society, we are also a member of the Aid Transparency Initiative. We don't want to preach what we don't do. We don't want just to be saying governments should open up their accounts and the way they do business, and we don't. This openness, hopefully, will increase transparency of development and improve coordination and aid effectiveness. As multilateral partners, we have a number of international fora. For instance, in 2012 in Brazil, I've seen some faces here who were there. We did co-host a workshop on OGP at the 15th IACC organized by Transparency International. We also intend to continue supporting governance programs almost in the same way that we have supported them in the past. In the last 3 years, we have been spending between $85 to $100 million a year on transparency accountability programs. But one thing that I am going back to Bangkok with are the so many innovative ideas that I witnessed. The many ideas, the many projects that are so successful, that are abundant in the region, but somehow they remain isolated projects. And it is our hope that issues of social responsibilities, issues of accountability to improve social delivery should move away from being in the margins of development and empower people to be part and parcel of development. I look forward to being invited again. Next time, I hope I have justified my presence, but I will promise you I will still want to occupy my place as that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Macheza. I saved the best for the last, as you can see. Well, but we have a final bonus coming up, which is the closing statement from Dr. Eko Prasojo. But let me precede that I am really not taking any conclusions from this, because the speakers have spoken with such clarity, and you have such common experiences, and we have all the same commitments, so we can take it from there and take it on the course of action that will bring us together even closer in the future. Let me now introduce, yes, applause for all the speakers. Let me now invite Dr. Eko Prasojo to the stage, and this is a man I started to know before the start of this current government. He is really a whiz kid, but I do not see him. Oh yeah, it's the same card, okay. I'm not used to these cards, okay. Dr. Eko Prasojo has been a very important person in this government, not as high profile as some of the lesser good guys, but he is a deputy minister in the Ministry of State Apparatus and Bureaucratic Reform. And I'm inviting the Honorable Deputy Minister to deliver the closing address. As you walk up, Dr. Eko, I would mention to the audience that He has pushed the civil servant apparatus law that's given a new soul to the bureaucracy of Indonesia by changing mindsets towards good governance. Silakan, Pak Eko.
Thanks, Pak Wimar. Your Excellency, Pak Kuntoro Mangkusubroto, distinguished minister and ambassadors, colleagues and friends from the governments, the civil society, academia, the private sector, multilateral partners, youth and media. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu. Thank you for the opportunity given to me on behalf of His Excellency Azwar Abu Bakar, the Minister for State Apparatus and Bureaucracy Reform, to say a few words at the very end of these important milestones to take open governance movement in the region one step further. On behalf of the governments of Indonesia, allow me to thank each and every one of you for your contribution and active participations throughout this today's conference. I am here to provide closing remarks as Indonesia gives high priority to bureaucracy reforms and good governance as the #1 national priority in our development agenda. I sincerely believe that the open governance movement is a catalyst to ensuring real progress on the ground from our bureaucracy reform efforts to eradicate corruptions, improve public service, and for a more responsive and effective governments. As multinational initiative that aims to secure concrete commitments from governments to promote transparency, empower citizens, fight corruptions, and harness new technologies to strengthen governance, the Open Government Partnership plays significant role in the growth, attainment of citizen welfare in this boundaries world. In the last 4 years, I have witnessed that the impressive participating countries joining the OGP, from only 8 in 2011 to 64 countries in 2014. The increase of participating countries is testimony the need and the importance of OGP for these countries. Critical to OGP's works on global levels is global governance. It is governance that fully subscribes to open governance principles. It is governance that strengthens international cooperations, advance economic development, and promote effective enjoyment of human rights. From the 2 days conference, allow me to recap several important points that the governments of Indonesia wishes to emphasize. We hope that through this forum, ideas and contacts have been exchanged, networks have been expanded, collaboration have been solidified, and all this will be useful in our future undertakings to bring about change in our respective community. Our homework to drive further openness in our respective community, country, and region shall never be a one-man show undertaking. Open government partnership is literally about making things happen in the spirit of partnerships between countries, civil societies, multilateral partners, private sectors, youths, academia, and the media. We hope that this conference gives you a clue on who and what to ask, and where to go anytime you want to embark on a new openness innovations. One thing for sure, we hope that this conference has convinced you that ideas and innovations can come from anywhere. Having mentioned the above, have we accomplished what we want to achieve through this conference? I think we can have a yes answer, because this conference and your participation have allowed for a wide range of ideas and contexts being exchanged. From issues that touch upon local governments, open media, citizen engagement, fiscal openness, legislative openness, the voices of youth and private sector, natural resources management, the conference has facilitated peer learning experience both from existing OGP participating and non-participating countries. Ideas and innovations really do come from anywhere and anyone. But do we stop here and rest on our laurels? I think the answer is no. Indonesia knows exactly, and I believe all countries that are represented here would concur that the journey towards better governance requires what I call the 4 C's: conceptions, commitment, continuance, and borrowing from the terminology of one of today's breakout sessions, co-partnerships. Conception or ideas. I was told once that capital is not so important in business. What is important is ideas. If you have ideas, you have the main asset you need, and there is not any limit to what you can do with your business and your life. Commitment. Nothing will stand those ideas being raised and tossed around without real commitment from every stakeholders. Continuance. The conference really is just the beginning of the long haul for all of us. Only with perseverance of continued efforts and actions that we will be able to introduce real change in our community. Last, co-partnership. No one, no country, no community shall never walk alone in this open government journey. One country or one CSO does not have all the answers. OGP therefore is there to facilitate an exchange of knowledge, ideas, and experience for the benefit of all relevant stakeholders. What we have discussed and decided during this conference is very important. It will affect billions of people's lives in the Asia-Pacific region and beyond. Your participation and contribution in this conference signifies our common interest in promoting and consolidating the values and principles of OGP. I am confident that through sharing and exchanging views and experiences, this conference will contribute positively to the attainment of open governments in the Asian Pacific or even in the world. OGP will be self-sustained if it is a homegrown and genuine processes. I strongly believe OGP is prerequisite for a success for public sector reform in our countries. OGP will also serve as the main component in the implementation of the post-2015 UN Development Agenda. If there is one thing that we will all learn most from the organization of this conference, is that partnership is the way. The governments of Indonesia is grateful to have great partners, fellow countries, GSOs, multilateral partners, private sectors, youths, academia, and media working in collaboration to organize this conference. I welcome all new ideas. I acknowledge all excellent inquiries. I support advanced thinking. But unless all these brilliant initiatives effectively implemented in our countries, and the next generation thinks that Asia Pacific is better place to live, we will actually achieve nothing. For that, I sincerely thank everybody here who have contributed ideas, comments, inquiries, and advice for OGP and implementing their beloved country. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi,
Waalaikumsalam.
Santi, Santi Om.
Dr. Eko, may I respectfully request that you stay on stage? And maybe I should ask for Karina Kusuma Wardani to assist me, because we have an innovative project which is doing a selfie for all of us. So everybody pull out their mobile device. I'm not sure how it works. Karina can tell me. And we all make selfies, you know. Football stars make selfies, presidents make selfies, and we all make selfies. So
With the audience?
Yes, with the audience. Yeah, I can help you.
no, selfie will just have me in it.
With all.
Oh, with the audience. Okay. I get it. Okay, we have selfie. Okay. Oh, hey, this is great. This is great. I'm more used with women, but you're okay. Bali.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ima.
Thank you, and hope to see you at the next OGP Pacific meeting. Bye-bye. Rahajeng Sanje. Senang ketemu Bapak.